Welcome to an introduction to domain names. First, let me make clear that this presentation is a non-technical discussion of domain names, designed for organizations and individuals thinking of creating a website, not for techies. It offers a very simplified explanation of how the internet and domain names work, followed by some advice on choosing and registering domain names. What is a domain name? A domain name represents an address on the internet. Just as you need a specific address to find a place in the real world, you need a specific address to find a location in the virtual world. The internet address, like a physical address, needs to be unique. On the internet, your unique address is actually a set of numbers, like a phone number. It's called an Internet Protocol or IP address, and is something like 162.221.161.99. Just as you need a unique phone number to let someone call you no matter who provides your phone service, the routers and connection servers of the internet allow others to reach you and your website using your unique IP address. So what does this have to do with domain names? Well, people aren't very good at remembering long numbers. Some of us even forget our own phone numbers from time to time. We certainly can't remember the phone numbers of all the people we might want to call. So the folks who created the internet created the domain name system to associate alphanumeric names with specific IP addresses. For example, we can type in google.com instead of 204.202.20.2 because the domain name google.com has been associated in the domain name system with the IP address 204.202.20.2. If you type in or click on a link to a particular domain name, such as carolineacooper.com, your web browser sends the request through to your internet service provider to a domain name server. The domain name server, or DNS, acts like a directory of domain names. The DNS program quickly checks what primary IP address is associated with that domain name and sends your request through to the system, to the DNS of my web hosting service. Since I share hosting space with a lot of other people, my web hosting service DNS must quickly sort and direct your request to the specific location on a computer containing all the files for my website. Whew! If a request comes for Ling's website, the unique IP address associated with his domain name makes certain that your request ends up at his website instead of mine. It's a bit like all the mail for an apartment complex getting sorted into the right boxes. One big advantage to using the internet domain name servers to route requests is that if I decide to move my business to another web hosting service, I don't have to change my domain name. I simply have to change the domain name server associated with my domain name. It's like keeping the same phone number even though you've changed phone companies. By the way, the .com part of google.com is called a top-level domain name, or TLD. Top-level domains are the bit of the web address that follows the last dot. For example, in the domain name pincall.edu, the top-level domain name is the .edu, and in the domain name dor.wa.gov, the .gov is the top-level domain. There are a limited number of top-level domains, although they're not as limited as they used to be, and many of them are restricted. For instance, the .edu is restricted for use by accredited educational institutions, while the .gov is restricted for use by recognized U.S. government entities. The top-level domain is important because as far as the internet is concerned, SherlockCares.com is completely different from SherlockCares.org. Just as the phone number 360-555-5555 is considered completely different from 805-555-5555. To a certain extent, you can think of top-level domains, or TLDs, as doing a similar job as the area code of the phone number. There are a number of advantages to having your own domain name. All businesses and professional organizations should have their own domain names. It's not only more professional, it's more memorable. In addition, if you have worked hard to build your business and your reputation, a domain name is a valuable business asset. For some businesses, it is their only saleable asset. First, realize that you don't buy a domain name. You register and license it annually. This is an important distinction if you are having someone else register your domain name for you. The person whose name is on the registration is the person who controls the domain. If someone else is registering your name for you, make certain your domain name is being registered in your name. To avoid potential problems, register your domain name through an ICANN accredited domain name registrar. That is a company that registers domain names. ICANN is the abbreviation of the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, which controls Internet names and IP addresses. Your reputable hosting services are usually ICANN accredited. If you have any doubts whether you are using an accredited company, just ask. Choosing your domain name requires that the domain name with the top-level domain extension be available. In other words, no one else has registered it already in their name. For this reason, you may want to put a little thought and research into available names before you sit in front of a computer attempting to sign up for a hosting service. One of the things you may discover rather quickly is that the domain name and the TLD extension you want is already taken. In some cases, you may find out it is, quote, for sale, unquote. In other words, the person who has registered it is offering to transfer it to you for a price. This is perfectly legal, and there are people whose entire business is buying up domain names and selling, quote unquote, the registration rights to someone else. In fact, since the only way to determine if a domain name is unique and therefore available for registration is to look it up in the official domain name system, there are people who have automatic programs that track all domain requests. And they may register a name first while the person researching the name is still thinking about it. Therefore, it's recommended you plan to register either the first available domain name you like or several domain names that you think you would like to use. There are a number of things to keep in mind when choosing a good domain name. The first question many people have is, how important is the .com version versus other extensions? Originally, people all assumed that domain names ended with .com. However, today people are used to different extensions, so having the .com extension isn't as critical. Many small businesses are content to have a .biz extension. For one thing, we rarely type a domain name directly into our browsers these days. Most website traffic comes from links through search engines, online content, social media posts, or email sharing. Having said that, if you have an older target audience, you may want to look for a .com domain name. And it's entirely possible you may choose to have more than one domain name pointing to the same site for a number of reasons. Sometimes your business name doesn't really indicate key information, such as what you do or where you are. For example, CarolynECooper.com or SmallDog.com. You may want to include keywords such as CarolynECooperConsulting.com or SmallDogComputers.com. This not only helps the search engines rank you on relevant searches, but it encourages click-throughs by people seeing your listing. You may also want to register domain names that reflect products you sell or services you offer. Say your business is named Betsy's Corner, and you sell yarn and knitting supplies in Agnew, Washington. You may want to register not only betsyscorner.biz, but betsyscorner.knitting.com, betsysyarn.com, or betsysknittingsupplies.com. And since there happens to be other businesses named Betsy's Corner in the world, including another knitting shop, you might want to register betsyscorneragnew.com or betsyscornerwa.com. Here are some additional tips on choosing a good domain name. First, make it easy to remember. Make it easy to spell and type. If you have to explain your domain name, it probably isn't a good one. If my domain name is, for example, golfforyou.biz, and I have to explain that's golf and the word for, F-O-R-E, like, for, and the letter U as opposed to golf for you or golf for you, the letter U, or any number of other possible spellings, well, you can see the problem. Also avoid hyphens, dashes, underscores, and other unusual characters which have to be explained. It only makes things more complicated and increases the chance that they won't find your website. However, if your name is commonly misspelled, consider registering the misspelled versions of your name. For example, bestfriendgrooming.biz. A lot of people misspell friend, so they might want to also register the common misspelling F-R-E-I-N-D. Try to include your most important keywords or purchase a second domain name that includes your top keywords. For example, bestfriendgrooming.biz might also want bestfrienddoggrooming.biz. Check before you include someone else's trademark, however, in your domain. The Anti-Cybersquatting Consumer Protection Act of 1999 has restrictions on the use, or non-use as it were, of domain names containing trademark terms. Once you have made a list of possible domain names, you can start checking availability at whois.net. Alternatively, you can go to a domain name registrar and start searching for your first choice, then your second choice, and so on. Most hosting services are also domain name registrars, or you can search on the term domain name registrar. Be prepared to register and pay immediately with your credit card when you find an available name. Domain names range in price from US $10 to US $20, depending upon the TLD. Many domain name registrars have frequent discount sales. However, be wary of anyone offering an exceptionally low registration fee. Remember, if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. And if you are planning to purchase website hosting as well, many hosting companies offer a free 1-year domain registration with the purchase of a hosting package. Always look carefully at the services you are paying for. Compare the domain name registrar company to others and look at a number of reviews. Always remember, too, you don't have to register your domain name with the company that hosts your website, and there are advantages to keeping them separate. You are far more likely to become unhappy with your hosting service than your domain name registration. But if this sounds too confusing, simply select a web hosting company that will also register your domain name. One of the common options offered by domain name registrars these days is privacy protection. When you register a domain name on the internet, the information is publicly available through whois.net. If you don't want everyone to be able to find out your name and address, then you may wish to pay extra to have your domain name registration listing provide only the information about your domain name registering company. The fee for this usually runs less than US $10 per year. And remember, your domain name is a valuable business asset, especially if you're successful. Thank you for watching.